Many African Americans are inspired to reconnect with their roots and make a move to Africa. However, despite the promise of a fresh start and a connection to ancestral lands, a surprising number end up leaving after a short time. And why is that? We will dive into the reasons why the African American diaspora faces challenges that lead them to return to the West. Welcome to my channel, I'm Marvin, and about a year and a half ago I moved to Nairobi, Kenya. While I've had a life-changing experience, I've met many people from the diaspora that saw things differently. I will break down the reasons behind African Americans moving back based on their stories and my own. Let's talk about the decision to move first. So for many of us in the diaspora, the decision to move to Africa stems from a deep desire to reconnect with our roots and escape the pressure of life in the West. That was certainly a significant part of my motivation as well. Growing up in the West, I always felt a strong connection to Africa because my roots are in Eritrea. I had this sense that I would feel more at home in Africa, where I could build something meaningful and live a life that aligned more with my values. For African Americans, the decision to move often comes from a similar motivation. Many are drawn to Africa by a sense of cultural belonging and the hope of freedom from racial discrimination. They look to countries like Ghana, Kenya, and Tanzania, thinking they'll be able to reconnect with their history and live a life free from the struggle they faced back in the States. But the reality is that for some, the move doesn't always turn out the way they expect it to turn out. So let's talk about the initial excitement versus the reality. So when I first landed in Kenya, I felt an incredible sense of excitement, like I was finally stepping into the life I had been imagining. Everything was new, the energy, the culture, the opportunities, but the reality hit quickly, and I realized that building a life here was going to take much more than just passion. And this is something I've heard time and time again from African Americans who move to other African countries. The excitement of reconnecting with the continent can quickly be met with unexpected challenges, some practical and some emotional ones. There's often a romanticized view of what life in Africa will be like, but the realities can be jarring. For me, adjusting to life in Kenya took time. I had to get used to different cultural norms, learn Swahili, and navigate a totally different infrastructure than what I had in the West. Thankfully, Kenya's warmth and openness helped me settle in faster, but it wasn't without its tough moments. And that's where the reality of the experience often kicks in. The African American diaspora often comes expecting one thing, but realize that the continent, while beautiful and rich in culture, also comes with its unique challenges. Why do we all romanticize the image of Africa? So let's think about it. Many African Americans, including myself when I first arrived, come to Africa with a romanticized image of what life here will be like. We envision the motherland as a place free from the racial tension of the West, a place where we can find peace and reconnect with our roots. And while there is some truth to it, for some it's important to recognize that Africa is not perfect as well. Each country has its own challenges, from political instability and economic disparities to racial tensions. And when reality sets in, it can be hard to reconcile the dream with the reality. For some, it becomes easier to return to a life they know rather than face the challenges they didn't anticipate. A major factor I've noticed that leads African Americans to leave after moving here is the struggle to integrate fully into the local culture. While African Americans come to Africa expecting a deep connection right away, the reality is that Africa's cultures are incredibly diverse. Each country has its own traditions, values, and ways of living, and it's not always easy to fit in right away. I experienced it firsthand. Even though I have African roots, I still had to learn the social customs here in Kenya. And there were times when I felt like an outsider as well. So for African Americans, the cultural divide can sometimes be even more pronounced. You might share the same skin color, but it doesn't automatically mean you share the same worldview. What I realized over time is that feeling a sense of belonging takes longer than expected, especially when you come from a completely different walk of life. This difference in social norms, especially around communication, can create feelings of isolation. You may find that your views or lifestyle don't align as closely with the locals as you hoped. And then, one of the biggest misconceptions many African Americans have is that living in Africa will be much cheaper or starting a business will be easy because the labor costs are much lower. However, moving from a Western economy to an African one comes with its own set of challenges. Even though the cost of living in many African countries can be much lower than in the US, wages and job opportunities are not the same at all. When I moved here, I had to find ways to support myself financially, just like in any other country in the world. While Kenya has many opportunities, I had to shift my mindset to adapt to the local economy. Starting my own business has been incredibly rewarding, but it took patience and learnings how things operate differently here compared to the West. Some people from the diaspora come with big ideas for starting businesses, only to find that navigating local bureaucracies, securing permits, and understanding the market can be more difficult than expected. For many, the entrepreneurial journey in Africa doesn't always work out the way they imagined it would turn out, and this leads some of them to give up and to return home. Another major factor that drives the diaspora back to the US is the feeling of loneliness or homesickness. For many, moving to Africa is a solo journey, and while they expect to find communities easily, it's not always the case. Despite the warmth of the people, it can be hard to form deep connections with them, especially if you don't speak the local languages or understand the culture nuances, and this always depends on where you move to. Personally, I was lucky to meet many welcoming people who helped me adjust, but it took also a lot of effort. I had to immerse myself in the local culture, I attended many events, and I was very open to meet a lot of new people. Not everyone is prepared of that level of social adjustment. Without a strong support system, it's easy to feel isolated, which can lead some people to reconsider their decision to stay. So why did I stay while others left? For me, the rewards outweigh the challenges. Yes, there were tough moments, adjusting to the culture, figuring out the economy, and dealing with bouts of homesickness. But the opportunity to live in a place that aligned with my values, where I could build something meaningful and reconnect with my roots, kept me grounded. I saw the challenges as opportunities for growth. The resilience I developed by pushing through the tough times is something I value deeply now. So in conclusion, moving to Africa isn't for everyone, and that's completely okay. Some people come here with very high expectations and leave when those expectations aren't met. But for those who are prepared to face the challenges, Africa offers a life full of opportunities, growth, and connections. If you're thinking about making the move, my advice is simple. Do your research, manage your expectations, be prepared to adapt, and visit the country you're planning to move to first. Moving to a new continent is never easy, but it can also be one of the most rewarding experiences of your entire life. Just remember, it's about finding a place where you feel the strongest sense of belonging. And the last thing is, if you've considered moving to an African country or have already done it, drop a comment below and share your experiences to help each other. And if you're still on the fence, I hope this video gave you some insights to think about. And watch some of the other videos I placed right here to get more insights about African developments.